Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 616, recorded live on Saturday, October 24th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Asheras. Hello, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back. It's been a little bit, so it's good to have you back.
Yeah, it has.
We also have Vooduspyce.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome back to you, too.
Thank you.
It's always good to have you guys on the show. We should have a lot of fun today. I am excited about this one. Let's see. The screenshot of the week. Grigor grabs this great shot from his guild airship in the 485th screenshot of the week. Thanks, Grigor, for sending in this week's screenshot. Looks like he's got mostly the red Night Revels armor, the black unicorn, and of course the Night Revels skyline behind him. Always kind of fun.
That feels more like the orange armor to me, but I could be wrong.
Looking good.
Either way, it's a good shot.
There's an orange armor?
It is the red. The red's like a tomatoey red, so it kind of looks orange.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's purple, blue, red, and green. Right?
Okay.
Like those are the choices?
Yeah, I guess it's the orange. The red one looks orange to me, I guess.
It could be. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by CyberEars, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend, and you can stay updated by following us on our website, DDOCast.com, or on social media at Twitch or at Twitter at DDOCast. And we also have a calendar at our website, DDOCast.com, that you can check out as well, which I'm usually decently good at these days of keeping things up to date on that. So, yeah, on the podcast this week, we got a little bit of extra news. We didn't have a show last week because my personal schedule was in great flux. It was my grandmother's birthday, so I was trying to keep times clear so that we could get together, and then nothing actually happened. It didn't happen, of course. But so that was part of the reason why that didn't happen, and some other kind of scheduling stuff. But we'll get you caught up this week. A lot of fun news. And then on the back half, we're going to talk about the Fables of the Feywild preview. So we're going to kind of get into the Lamania build. This week we had the second preview of Fables of the Feywild. So we get to talk about that. Kind of some other inside baseball-y stuff. We will be getting back to the builds kind of discussion. Building a tank is where we are currently, kind of in the middle of that. But next week will probably be our review for Update 47. So we'll talk about what we think about the new raids and the shifter and kind of all that stuff kind of in more detail. You'll probably get a little bit of an idea of what that feels for some of us. But that'll probably be next week. And then we'll kind of get back into the building a tank. We'll get Voodoo back on the show for sure. We'll talk about how to build a caster tank, kind of a variation of building a tank and what's kind of different about that. And then we'll kind of go from there. Then we'll probably be talking about Fables of the Feywild review, hopefully. Fingers crossed if it comes out on time and stuff like that. Right, so game news. We'll get into that here. Old alchemical crafting and scrapping stuff. So with Update 47, the heroic and epic alchemical crafting changed. They took out the ingredient requirements for it. So you can basically just upgrade them for free, which is great. They don't, I don't know how relevant alchemical weapons are in today's world. They kind of feel not so much to me. I don't know. Do you guys have a different opinion on that?
No,
I'm just
they're
wondering
outdated.
if they're going to become a little bit more interesting since they're so basically free to craft. Are more people going to be interested in getting them to use for a couple levels during upper heroics, which is that very tiny niche space that they occupy? I don't know. I'm not going to run out and craft any, but I'm curious to see if they might become a thing.
I always held on to a lot of blanks of those in a bank alt just in case something ever happened with it. But as I look at it, there might be some weapons that aren't covered with Sharn, for example, where it might be valuable. But a lot of times, I find that my green steel weapons typically get me through that range pretty well.
Yeah, and when you start talking about the epic ones, right? Like they were kind of invalidated almost immediately by the stuff you could get in Underdark, Menace the Underdark. So I'm not sure what space they saw, but hey, they're cheaper, so that's great, right? Like we like that. Let's see if some of my blanks, the blanks that I still have, might maybe get some action on the auction house. Maybe, I don't know.
To me, here's the good thing. For the very, if there's a few people out there who wanted them, and it was almost impossible to get them because nobody runs MA and LOB, and now those maybe that tiny segment of the population that wanted an alchemical weapon can now do it, and I'm happy for that. That's a plus.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you
But
still.
+2 alchemical stats always nice, I think. I mean, at least
It's
for a
true.
caster.
It's true.
I don't know.
Yeah, the biggest hang up, right, was in order to craft an alchemical weapon, you had to run, especially like the epic ones, you had to run it on multiple difficulties, right, to get the different tier ingredients, which was really kind of the big barrier and hang up in that regards. But
And it was always confusing to me which difficulty gave which ingredient.
For sure, yeah. That's true. Anyways, so Linabelle clarified some stuff. The recipes to melt down your stuff are the binding station, not the melting station. And then he clarified the items that you can turn into House C or Sharn materials. They're no longer they no longer drop. They're entirely deprecated. They have no further use in DDO. Probably. I mean, they say that about the Night Revels every year, and this year Night Revels ingredients didn't deprecate, so you know. But anyways, you can turn them into the newer stuff, and this is probably a safer bet. You can turn in all the Kyber Dragon shards. The list was actually just like, here's all the Kyber Dragon shards of different elements, and then the power cells. I believe I didn't grab it, but I'm pretty sure that there was a post that yes, you will be able in the future to turn in just the elemental bits as well. So that should be better, right? But you can go turn those in, and I'm personally waiting until you can crunch them all, just so I only have to go and do it the one time. But there you go. Hardcore transfers. Character transfers off the hardcore server have been temporarily disabled while they work to resolve an issue that has prevented some players from transferring off of the server in recent weeks. At this time, they are not ready to announce a date the transfers from hardcore will again be available. If it remains disabled for an extended period of time, they will consider extending the Season 3 after-party period to make sure everyone has a chance to move the character off the server. I would say that there's probably a good bet that that's going to happen at this point. The hardcore transfer, the after-party was supposed to go through November 3rd. Which, hey, I believe that's Election Day in the U.S., so...
yeah, it is.
It's celebrate Election Day by, and that's also when the Night Revels ends, so all kind of together. Nice diversion from that. In any case, they haven't really said, but I know from at least one person, and probably more, so people have been unable to transfer characters off of hardcore server, and depending on where you get stuck in that can have some really nasty ramifications on your account. As is the case for someone that I know who has been unable to log into their account since they tried to transfer a character off of hardcore.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I think that's been going on for 3 or 4 weeks now. 3 weeks, I think.
It's horrifying.
I believe this is not official or anyway. This is just kind of me inferring. But when you transfer something, it tells you that transfer a character. It tells you your character, or you won't be able to log into your account until that transfer is complete. Usually, it doesn't take very long. I think this person got stuck in a transfer situation where their character is stuck in transit, and because of that, their account is not. They can't log into their account. I don't know if that's what all of these people are experiencing, but they're clearly having difficulties with the transfer, so that's been shut off. And that's been true for about a week and a half, I think. So
About that, yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, my expectation is they'll probably extend the after party because of that. So, let's see. Epic Destinies. The rumor mill has been going in overdrive in Epic Destinies, I think, of late. Part of this is because one of the things with the Fables of Feywild packages is you get Epic Destinies with the expansion. Probably that's a holdover because they were planning on going beyond level 30, and they were planning on doing some work in Epic Destinies at the same time. That all got pushed. So I think Epic Destinies being a part of the pre-orders are part of that. Cordovan did say Epic Destinies are expected to remain in the game for quite some time, regardless of whether work is done to improve them or a different system is introduced for above level 30 in the future. While it's perfectly okay to make choices based on rumor and speculation, these tomes will continue to provide their benefit in the future. He's talking about the Tomes of Destiny, which came with the Ultimate tier of the pre-order. So basically, people were concerned that, hey, they're hearing all these things about how they're going to change Epic Destinies. They're saying that there's still going to be Epic Destinies even if they change them. So that's good. I like Epic Destinies.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a safe bet they're going to be there. I think it's just a question of what changes are. I mean, yeah, and honestly, a lot of the Epic Destinies haven't had a lot of work done to them. I know, there were some tweaks here and there, but most of them are very much the same as they've been for years.
It's the whack-a-mole balancing, right? Like they made some changes, and now some of them are overperforming others, and everything like that. So, shifting and monk stances. So Steelstar wrote in on this, and his response is a little complicated. So people are you can't use monk stances with shifter shifting. That was a choice that they made during the previews of shifters for balancing reasons. They're worried about the balance of shifter monks, and they would rather introduce something that they know, and rather than introduce something that they know they might need to scale back, they want to take a little more time to make sure they get the balance right. Basically saying that I think that they want to see how shifters live in the real world environment without being able to use monk stances and shifting at the same time. And if they feel that it needs a boost, they can make that not exclusive in the future. But they don't want to do that right now because they want to see how it kind of performs and that kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, I think that would be a game changer to have the shifters be able to be monks. I'd be really excited to play a monk in that scenario as a shifter. Yeah. As it is right now, I haven't really found what the shifter's niche is. I know that's not really what we're covering today, but
yeah, that's a fair question. Although, also I would say that in general, I don't feel like Iconics. I don't think like Iconics are game changer races in the sense that they don't typically like overperform relative to the mean of other choices. As far like the builds that I've kind of seen that are like tend to be kind of overperforming or like kind of the top tier builds generally are using basic races. There's a couple of exceptions. Blade Forge is getting some love in the tank community right now.
PDK was really popular when
Yeah,
for the charisma stuff when the Paladin came out. But and then there's the Scourge is pretty popular too. But I would agree with you. I don't think that any of them particularly overperform their base class all
right.
that much. I kind of prefer like the base ASMR for most things, for example.
Yeah. Let's see. Pre-purchasing the expansion. So they have a new market technology something behind the scenes. With Fables of the Feywild, when you purchase it, you don't actually get a code. You sign into your account and then it just applies to that account. So one, make sure that you're on the right account when you do that. I have no idea if it prevents you from buying the expansion a second time. I hope it does.
I haven't tried it. I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna try it. It just kind of seems silly. But it doesn't get delivered as a code. They are looking at ways to, or in the future, they do want to return that functionality to the store, but they don't have that currently. Hopefully that'll be sooner than later. There's a recognition that people want to buy that for other people and that kind of a thing. I believe that they are also looking at moving the older expansions to the new mechanism, which if they did that right now would obviously mean you could not buy those as a gift. So yeah.
But well, those are certainly popular. Like even in our guild, sometimes we have competitions, and then the reward is an expansion code or something like that. And then you have a lot of family members who buy them as gifts for each other.
Yeah.
But it seems like the new site is linked to Daybreak, whereas the old site was still the old Turbine Digital River one. So I would suspect it's just some sort of finally getting around to cleaning up some of those old relationships.
Interesting. Yeah. Or kind of strengthening the relationship that they have with Daybreak or simplifying something. Sure, yeah. Could see that. It may make it easier for Daybreak to just get their cut or whatever, as opposed to SSG having to send money separately or something to that effect. All possibilities. All right, let's talk about Update 47 Patch 1. This was released on Tuesday, October 20th. Nothing crazy in here. Barbarian Rage and Shifter Shift abilities now have a base duration that match their tooltip, which is 30 seconds plus the Constitution modifier. I don't think that's isn't there like a multiplier to the Constitution modifier? I feel like that was true. Anyways, it should match the tooltip. Fey Dark Illusionist Familiar now levels up to level 5 properly instead of getting stuck on level 4 and then jumping to level 6. I think that's referring to how they upgrade over time, get bigger and stuff. Fixed a couple of weapons and items and stuff. The Feywild Collector and Ultimate Fan Edition claim tickets now properly state they are from the Feywild expansion, not from the Sharn expansion. That's good. The Tome of Destiny +1 found within the Ultimate Fan bundle of the Fables of the Feywild pack now correctly states that you must be level 20 or above to consume it. I believe you also must be in a state where you can manipulate your destiny. So if you are not a VIP, you have to be talking to the Fate Spinner to eat it. I don't know if that's still true or not. But they were saying that as a workaround.
They really should have added a note in the bundle, bullet points saying what that did. Because I had to look that up. I was looking at that Tome of Destiny because that wasn't a thing before.
Right.
I was like, what is that? It doesn't say. They could just put in parentheses like adds +1 action point to your Epic Destinies or something like that.
It actually is on the page.
It is where?
So you have to go down to key features, and then open up the exciting bonus items in Ultimate Edition, and then it's in the fine print of that.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I see that now because I'm on that page, but yeah, it's a...
Yeah, if you yeah, they could have maybe made that a little easier, right? Or
I didn't even realize those plus circles were clickable and that would bring down something. I thought that was just like a bullet point thing, you know?
Yeah. But hey, you know what? The Ultimate Fan Bundle is the recommended bundle.
Yeah, of course it is.
I still think that's funny.
Shocking.
Let's see, back to the update, the patch. Purity Filigree now properly provides Mummy Rot Ward benefit against mummies in the Night Revel event. That's stuff they have to code individually, apparently, so something always gets missed. Promise of Fire, they fixed some stuff. The Heresies of Volcarum now leashes when it attempts to leave the path of the Scorpion area or when it falls down into the basement. Eternity Unleashed in Night Revels, they corrected an issue that's preventing completion, and they had reopened the challenge, which was probably that right there was probably the impetus for getting the patch out, more than anything else in these notes.
Yeah, probably.
They corrected some animations with shifters, including female shifters getting stuck in Bard Song animation indefinitely. Some other things. They also fixed the eye and wing cosmetics appearing on shifters and Razorclaw shifters, which is both good. Let's see, some buggy stuff that happened, both from the release of Update 47 itself and for the patch. There was a brief period of time where the 100 favor was not granting the store points, the DDO points. They did go back and retroactively apply favor point grants to all those who should have gained them in the roughly 20-hour window. So that should all be resolved. If you're wondering, how do you check that? If you look in your store history, it will show you where each of those favor point grants in there. So you can kind of keep an eye on that if you need to. But this is the first time I think I can remember of that happening. So it's not a common issue by any means. Which is good. Let's see. I think we covered the Tome of Destiny +1 stuff, which they kind of fixed most of it. See, color spray skulls should be appearing after a patch. That was not in the release notes, and I haven't checked to see if you can find them in the marketplace or portable hole yet, but that should be happening. Some of the funner ones. Warlock Aura color change. So if you play a Warlock and you use the Aura, you may have noticed that the color changed. Lunabelle wrote that this is the bare bones of a feature many players have asked for, and Lunabelle has been tinkering with in secret, the ability for your Warlock pack to determine the color of your Aura. He got an artist to get the 6 new colors done as a favor, and must have accidentally swapped in the new base purple color. He'll see if he can sneak the rest of the work in, or worst case, get the art reverted. But that should be fun, right? Like getting a little different coloring. I mean, Warlock, Voodoo, you play Warlock still, don't you?
Yeah, and then Light and Spirit has like a pink. I mean, they're calling it purple here, but I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Light and Spirit. The Fey Pact is like a pink aura and burst now. It's like Periwinkle or something.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a really cool idea.
Sure.
I mean, I wouldn't want everyone to have the same color, just different, but all of them having different colors would be really cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Von 6 is currently bugged, and because of that, they have temporarily closed it. You can still do Von 5, which is notable because Von 5 is a great XP boost. They originally thought that this issue was related to the problem with Eternity Unleashed, and they had said that when that got fixed, they thought that Von 6 was going to get fixed. Well, not true. Von 6 is still broken, and Eternity Unleashed is fixed, so there you go. Let's see. They did... I think they fixed the Sense Weakness problem, right? I didn't read that. Sense Weakness was not granting its extra damage. I thought I saw that they fixed it, but I can't find that now, so maybe not. That's the helpless damage bonus. Potions are not working on others again. This is a halo effect of the work that was done to allow certain potions to be used while raging. They want to return this prior functionality, but it is not currently possible to do both. To which my response is, like, did we forget this? Because that was true. That's been true for years. Like, what happened here? You can use the buffs, the potions that you can get from the House K guild vendors. You could use on yourself while raging, and then couldn't use on others, which was a workaround. I don't understand why they changed potions to work while raging when, like, we already knew that was an issue, and they clearly didn't fix that problem. So I'm kind of irritated by that change.
Yeah, why did they change the regular potions to act like the guild potions? Like,
yeah, like did they must not have realized that was a problem until after whoever made that change, until after it went live and that was an issue. But I don't know. That's kind of a frustrating one. I like being able to use the potions on others. If for no other reason than remove paralysis potions are useless if you can't use them on others. Because you're paralyzed. You can't use them while you're paralyzed. What's the point? So, see, legendary alchemical sickles are not currently craftable. That will be fixed in an upcoming patch, so you can hang on to your sickles. All 5 of you who use sickles, I guess you can use it if you just got it for you want to make a castery item. Sure. I don't think sickles are an in-demand melee weapon these days.
That's actually what I do. Is I use sickles for my caster 6 just because they look cool.
There you go. I mean, but you can glamour them too, right? So
yeah,
you just need a sickle. Shadow blades and rune arms. This one is fun. So Tuxedo Man 96 wrote on the forums, one of my guildmates was using Shadowblade SLA from Feydark Illusionist on his Artificer and found it did not do force damage when his rune arm was equipped, and instead did the damage of rune arm discharge, which was doing fire and bludgeoning since he was wearing Strantani's hand cannon. This happened for the single target SLA, but not the cone. He didn't test the ring of the Shadow Blades. Steelstar wrote back, well, that's weird. Checks out, though. Investigating. This has to be one of the most esoterically strange bugs that we've seen in a long time. So, that was kind of interesting. And then finally, claw attacks from the shifters appear to be using the dual weapon size hitbox instead of the monk hand wrap size hitbox. They'll get that fixed for a future patch, hopefully update 48. So there you go. A little buggy. More bugs of note than I think we've had for a while, but they're also, I don't think, too impactful in the game either. So, although I did have someone. A friend who was playing a Razor Claw shifter using hand wraps did mention that the hitbox thing is really lousy for that. So hopefully they'll get that fixed pretty quick. Bonus days, you get a +5 treasure hunter boost through October 25th. Store news. So the sales this week rise again. So 20% off of reincarnation items, healing items, spell point potions, quest elixirs. Through October 29th. You can also get a free Jeweler's Toolkit with the coupon code JEWELKIT through October 29th. There was also a question about moving it's about the new market place and how it's interacting with other countries, apparently. So someone asked, will you move the new expansion to the old market after it's released? Daybreak doesn't like my country. Cordovan wrote that they will be moving over to the new DDO market in the future, but which I believe that he means that all of their marketing stuff all of the market stuff is going to move to the new functionality that only the expansion is currently using. Why they didn't make that change at the same time, I don't know. Cordovan continues, I'm sorry that you have run into a payment issue. This is not being caused by our publisher, but depending on where you live, may be a requirement placed on our payment processors from the current U.S. Department of Commerce, which is a little eyebrow raising. So apparently, depending on where you live, the U.S. Department of Commerce may not like your forms of payment in those countries. I don't know what country this is or how many this impacts.
Heard of that happening before to a guildie.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Do you know, or are you willing to say what country they were in?
Venezuela.
Okay. That sort of
It
makes
was back when there was a lot of turmoil in Venezuela. It was like 6-8 years ago, and they couldn't use their credit card or something to buy DDO stuff.
Yeah, that kind of tracks. I think that was I think Venezuela still has a lot of issues. I'm not super great on world politics though, but yeah, so that was what was going on. Hopefully that's not you if you're listening to this, but understand that if you don't live in the US, and depending on our administration and what's going on in your country, that can happen. Sucks though. All right. That covers our game news. Let's talk about community news. The 400th Chronicle came out this week, which...
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of neat, right? Community Spotlights. Axel has a rundown of the Fables of the Feywild edition, so you can check out his video on that. DDO Players News also put together a preview. If you're interested in seeing that, they have a video as well. The comment for the week: if you could have a DDO-themed lunchbox, what would it have on it? Dragons? Like, that's...
It would have the first edition player's handbook, that demon statue on the front, and the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide to Freedy on the back. I love that old school artwork.
Sure.
I'd go red box probably. Red box cover with the guy fighting the dragon.
I would point out it's DDO
Nice.
themed, not D&D
Classic.
themed, but they're both good choices.
Oh yeah, it did say DDO themed.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Dang. Well, I guess we failed.
We totally failed.
Let's see, fan site news. We got a shout out for our discussion with Samus on the pre-purchase of the Feywilds. DDO Players News talked unicorns and extra life. That Jerry was on that show to talk about the extra life stuff, which we should. I should grab that really quick because they are still doing extra life through. I'm not sure. Look that up. Anyways, DDO Stream is your first stop to find DDO on Twitch. This week, Brock and friends get cursed, DDO PL shifts gears, and Sig Trent hangs out with and then kills monsters. Also on Twitch, Samus Grobo hit 20 and beyond. Voodoo Chat chats about Night Revels and Reincarnation. And Strim Tom gets spoilery with new Feywild items. Yeah, you want to talk about that really quick?
Just one of my live streams. I was doing some Night Rebels, and I did a Reincarnation on the live stream. Simple stuff.
Night Rebels is great for some of that stuff, right? Like, get.
Oh yeah, it's a great place of farming out epic XP.
Oh man.
That's what I've been doing. I've been using it for XP a lot. It's really nice. If you can get through a life, and I mean, it makes it so much faster.
It's a little. It averages out to a little more than if you're using a 50% pot, 200,000 XP per little dungeon, and there's 10 of them. And some of them are very quick. But you can get the whole thing done in like an hour, depending on what your builds are and stuff like that. So let's see, where were we? On YouTube, Rob T in BC does a charity drive. Plinky watches a frog tank a Doom Reaper. I wouldn't imagine the frog lasted very long, but okay. And Broadcaster is gaming online, solos Death House. Let's see. Cordovan talked about Augments and Night Revels this week on the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. So if you'd like to check that out, you can do that. Let's see. videos. Voodoo, I know you posted a video recently. What was it about? I didn't write it down.
To improve your hit points.
Yes, that was it. I saw that.
Yeah, it's been a
pop up.
popular one so far. So this is can I plug it real quick?
Go for it.
So, we made this for, with newer players in mind. If you are running around at level cap of 30 and you got like 800 hit points, and you're thinking, you're looking at everybody else in your party and thinking, oh, they have so many more hit points than me because they must have a bunch of past lives. Well, that actually isn't it. There's such a preconception, I think, that pervades DDO that newer players think, that they aren't where the next person is because they don't have a bunch of past lives. Well, Nimbin and I show how even on a first lifer, we talk about how you can have, like 1,000 hit points uh, at, level cap of 30. So if you're a little bit newer, you want to improve your hit points, check out that video.
Please.
I'll put the link in the chat right now.
Yeah. And we'll link to it in our show notes as well. Yeah, hit points are important. Definitely want to get some hit points.
Well, yeah, they are. I always find that whenever I run out of hit points, I die. Sorry.
Vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Speaking of dying, Extra Life runs through November 7th.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I pulled up the page. We'll just touch briefly on Extra Life. They are doing SSG is doing an Extra Life initiative that is in conjunction with, it's just SSG, right? So it's both Lotro and DDO. There are incentives for both. So if you want to donate, there's kind of you need to donate and then give Cordovan your information about, like, some specific information so we can match you. And then also what you want, right? So on the DDO side, there's community loot list picks. Also, when they reach the $20,000 goal, there will be included in kind of the raffle giveaways will be an ultimate fan edition of Fables, so the Feywild expansion. And you have to donate $10 to be entered into the drawings. And hey, they hit that in about a week, the $20,000 mark, which is fantastic. If you don't know what Extra Life is, kind of the short version is it's initiatives by gamers to help sick kids. So SSG specifically is donating their money or raising their money for Boston Children's Hospital. And I think the last couple of years they've actually raised the most for that hospital specifically. I believe other members of the team some of them are donating to other hospitals, kind of local to where they are. But the short version is the money goes to help sick kids, which is just normally a great place to give money during a pandemic. That I have to imagine that that's kind of even more of a need, just from the standpoint of one, there's probably more sick kids. There are some stuff with COVID that reacts with kids that gives them more problems. It's a rare thing, but it is inflammatory something or other. But the other thing is, if kids are sick and in a hospital, they may not be able to have a lot of visiting from family and support from family in that hospital right now. So this is a way that gamers kind of get together and raise money for sick kids. And we'll probably have Jerry on in the next week or two, just to kind of give a talk about that or something. We usually get him on the show for that. Let's see, DDOCast news. DDOCast Splat, we were off this last week. We should be back this Wednesday, so you can check us out playing DDO, me and a couple other folks. Also, hey, I just want to mention, for those of you who like watching the show on Twitch, I took some time over the last couple of weeks, and thank you to Shrim Tom for helping me kind of figure out and navigate what to do. But I did some work to give to actually have benefits for people who want to subscribe or give bits and that stuff. So we now have on Twitch some emotes and twitchy things that I still kind of mostly understand. I don't remember what they all were, but the different rewards you can get on Twitch, like I made some, edit some stuff from our our stock of images, and there's now some stuff there that is available for you if you like to do that. And if that's how you'd like to support the show, great. It's there for your enjoyment, more than me trying to make money off of this, but it's there for you if you like to enjoy it. And don't forget to check out D&D Night on DDO Stream. We've got a lot of fun groups going. This week is the Heroes of Battle Rise, which is the original campaign that started. So that's a lot of fun. That's one that I play in. We also started recently Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is a newer book. And I am shelving my Stormreach Chronicles, which is the DDO adaptation, for a little while. And going to be doing the Oracle of War Adventures League content for a little bit. So that's kind of some stuff that's going on there. You can check that out Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/DDO stream for all that stuff. All right. Lightning Post. Fuzzy Duck wrote in that he hasn't had much of a chance to deeply invest in Fey Dark Illusionists yet, since their established characters have all of their builds balanced just how they want them, but have dabbled in it a little bit on their completionist project and am enjoying it. Really enjoying imbuing with Shadow, since it means I can use Cranium Cracker from Temple of Elemental Evil a lot more on heroic levels without worrying about it breaking, and that's a bit of a beast. It's a club that's 19 to 20 times 3 with a 4d6 damage proc, and the older style of Vampirism. I've Got Your Back is another low-hanging fruit that's excellent to have for Eldritch Knights, since it means you can get 20 PRR and 10 MRR from having Shield and Night Shield active. Great defensive boost. Have these of you guys played with the Feywild, the Fey Dark Illusionist yet?
A little bit in Night Revels.
I haven't yet, no.
Any what are your early returns on it? You kind of like it?
Honestly, I'm not using it for sort of its intended purposes. Like, obviously you can get, big illusion DCs, and there's force spell power and stuff like that. Like, I'm just using it as sort of like a supplemental tree for my exploits in Night Revels. I can't really speak to the strength of the tree.
When you say exploits, you mean your activities, not
Yes,
game breaking.
not game breaking exploits, right? I'm using it in a more generic sense, right? So just to sort of to give me more spell power and stuff like that.
I can see where the charisma to hit and damage stuff is going to be valuable for some builds, but I really haven't had a chance to explore what those might be. And there's some other nice utility stuff in here too, I think, that I'm looking forward to trying out. That should be interesting.
I've seen a few of the illusionist blade barriers running around, so I know some people are using it. I'm not sure that how. I don't know that it's really caught on mainstreamy yet, but it's kind of interesting.
There's a tier 1 enhancement called Study the Arcane that gives you 30, 60, or 100 spell points. And that's not usually at tier 1 in a lot of other trees. So that's what I kind of earmarked as, if I'm on a build that's more melee focused, but I have some other abilities that need spell points, that might be a really easy, low spend way to grab some.
The big thing that stood out to me is I have the Universal Enhancement Tree tome, right? So I get 1 point to spend in one of the trees. This one is now like a really clear winner if you're playing a caster. Because I think like the first point is like 5 universal spell power and 5 force spell power. Which is much better than any of the other options for universal trees if you're playing a caster specifically. So
yeah, I would always toss that into Harper just because there was really nothing else to do. I didn't think.
Yeah, right.
But this is way better.
So if nothing else, that's good, right? We'll be talking a little bit more about this probably next week. We'll have our update 47 in review, and we'll kind of get more into that stuff.
Cool.
Let's see. Fuzzy Duck continues. The extra action point for Epic Destinies is excellent, especially following the past, which has adjusted costs and prereqs. It's potentially an entire extra ability you can fit in. His Paladin, for example, can now use Celestial Bombardment. It's kind of a fun one. I have been remiss in that I haven't really gone crazy with spending that extra point, but I should probably get on that. I've really just spent it on the
There's
trees that I've been
definitely
using.
some extra top tier stuff that's going to be within reach, because I know like you had to spend, normally you get 24 points, you got to spend 20 to get to that top tier.
Yep.
Now you only have 4 to spend up there, and that often meant you could only really get one of those abilities if it was 3 points to sink into it. Now that you can spend 5 points in that top tier, you can, a lot of people are going to be able to get a second ability off that top tier, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. All right. I think that'll take us to our Fables of the Feywild previews. So we'll kind of jump into that stuff. There's kind of 4 groupings of stuff in this that we're going to talk about, which are conveniently divided by SSG in their preview threads. So the first one is just kind of the generic release notes, which we kind of always get, which are very short. Shall we say, in no small part because we just had an update less than a month ago. If Fables of the Feywild actually drops when it's they're kind of aiming for, which is November 4th, that's going to be less than a month between Update 47 and Update 48, which I think may be the smallest amount of time between 2 updates, even if you consider the updates that have traditionally just been, here's a Night Revels pass and a couple other goodies.
Well, it makes sense because there was almost 6 months between Update 46 and 47, so they were way late on 47. What I'm curious about is, are they going to try to get something else in before the end of the year? Have we heard anything about that?
I think it's just the Fables of Feywild.
If that's hitting on November 4th,
between November 4 and December 4.
Okay, but right. Well, their target date is November 4th. But let's say they get it November 4th. That's almost 2 months before the end of the year. Like, are we gonna get like a classic module? No,
I doubt it.
I don't
Those
know.
usually take a little more time.
We haven't heard any rumblings, huh, about what's after Feywild?
That's a good point. I don't think so.
Not really. No,
not in content.
I think content-wise, there tends to be a gap after most expansions, anyways. That's a little bit longer than a typical release, and then plus with the holidays, it's not really 2 months as much as it's a month and a half. I would suspect we'd see something in January though, but I don't know what it would be. There hasn't been any news I've heard.
So my kind of expectation, and I'll roll this into another question someone asked me, is do I think Fables of the Feywild is going to come on time? My expectation of how the rest of the year is going to go is that we'll get Fables of the Feywild pretty close to on time. There's not a lot of stuff that they actually need to add to the game to get Fables of the Feywild out. Because the new race is already out, the new tree is already out. That's where most of your newer stuff is going to be, like your more newer system stuff, which is the stuff that usually gives them problems and is kind of puts a hold on things, right? So I think that stuff's going to be that stuff's already out. So the stuff that you're looking at, what's coming out with actual Update 48 content, which rarely, if ever, actually holds a release. Just because, one, I think making dungeons is one of the easier things I think they have to do with creating an update. And they've been doing it for a long time, so there's not usually a lot of new mechanics and stuff in there. So they're usually pretty stable parts of a release. New loot, again, tends to be pretty stable, and both of those things are also really insular, right? So if something's broken with the content, it rarely, if ever, halos out and breaks other things in the game. Same is true of new loot, and haloing out and breaking other things is usually where you're going to run into problems that's going to cause a hold. The one thing that I think is a danger and something that is probable to delay it is the augment revamp, which we'll get into in a little bit. Because one of the things with the augment revamp is a conversion from the old augment system to the new augment system, which has the potential to blow up every single item with an augment in the game. However, their preview this week seemed past that with flying colors. I didn't see any reports of anyone's items blowing up or any issues. There were a couple of smaller kind of issues. I think a couple items maybe had an augment color change. Be forewarned, the visuals and what your item looks like when it comes to augments is different in the preview. I don't know if that will stay the same, but some people thought they lost their augments completely, but it was just how that information was being presented was very different and similar to Voodoo's comment about the Tome of Destiny not being well communicated. It's small and fine printy more than like, hey, you have a slot here. But with that, I mean, that's like it. That's the update. So I think it's on track to be, if not November 4th, within that next week, right? Maybe it slips.
I think it'll be on time.
Yeah, maybe it'll be.
If we look
late.
at what they did with Ravenloft and Sharn, they met their targets, smooth rollouts. They did a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't perfect. Of course, there's going to be little hiccups, but if you compared to like the rollout of expansions years ago, I mean, the last couple have been just wonderful,
mm-hmm.
and I have full faith and confidence that Feywild is going to release on time and be a smooth release.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think they probably pulled out what was going to slow them down intentionally.
Which
so
probably slowed them down, which is why we got the update 47 late.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on, Asheras, because it was like just in the couple weeks prior to them releasing the bundles, they started, picking things out, and they were, yeah, you're right, they were doing that so that they could meet their targets, and probably if they have to at the last minute, just like make sure it gets out on time. Maybe they won't include the raid, and the raid will come out 3 weeks later or something like that. But they'll have something on November 4th. You can bet.
So I was actually gonna. That's where I was gonna go next. They've actually already said in that same small print that the fine print where the Tome of Destiny information was, the raid is not coming with the release of the update of the Fables of the Feywild. It's coming after the fact. So
now that answers why it's not there in the update
in the
preview 2 dungeons. Yeah.
So in response to your question of is there going to be a new update before the end of the year, I think the answer is yes. I think we will see a patch that will include that raid between, I would maybe before Thanksgiving, but possibly not till between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Have they given a new deadline on when the level increase and that sort of thing is going to happen?
No.
Because that's the other thing we could see. That's probably what the next release is then.
Maybe,
U49 would probably be that, would be my guess. And that may happen this year. I don't know.
I would tend to guess that won't be the case. And here's why. They pushed that work because they wanted to take more time on it and get a better handle on that, and in conjunction with the Epic Destiny Pass. So to get a level increase, what you're looking at is having an Epic Destiny Pass and whatever we'll call them legendary levels look like. And when they made that push, they said, okay, we need to give something to Feywild to give it a shine, and that was the Augment revamp, which means all of the work that would have gone into that went into the Augment revamp, or probably at least most of it, right? So I kind of tend to think that work is going to require a little bit of time to get. We also don't typically in February get huge updates, right? There might be like one or two quests, maybe 3 or 4, depending. Like 1 year, I think that was when we got Tower of Frost. That might be wrong. I think 1 year that was where we got the Age of Rage stuff. But it tends to be a little smaller. So I would expect that the level cap increase to slip kind of more into the April, May, June timeframe. Kind of a guess, but also keep in mind my prognostications this year have been terrible. I think I said I was expecting update 47 in August, and we got it in October. So, what do I know? Anyways, let's look at let's kind of dive a little bit more into the Fables of the Feywild preview, and these notes are ridiculously short. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 bullet points in the release notes so far for update 48. And most of them are the first 5 are all about fixing some stuff. The miscellaneous 2, which I kind of want to highlight, are about fixing stuff, but it's about the chat, which has been problematic, shall we say, the last several months. So the notes are improved how guild and guild officer chat is handled on the back end. This should greatly improve how quickly guild chat is available after a world restart and how fast it recovers after reconnection between the game servers and the chat server. Text chat messages sent to general, advice, trade, party, guild officer, or party-created chat rooms will now be displayed to you after they go to the chat servers and back. This means that if you are not connected to the chat server, it won't look like you're chatting with your guild, for example, when you're only really chatting with yourself. Layman terms, I believe that means when you type something in a chat, right, you'll see it pop up, but no one else will see it because you're not connected. Now you won't see that message unless it has gone to someone and then come back. My guess with this is that's going to create some interesting interactions with tells. Although tells may already do that, I'm not sure. But you might end up trying to say something and not see it there, so you're trying to say it again, and then when it does happen, maybe it'll show up both times or something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, with latency, that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. But there you go. There's the patch notes. Anything you guys want to pull out of that? Or...
No, there's not a whole lot in that. Once you dive into the content and the named loot and the augments, it'll get more interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about the dungeons. I don't know. Do either of you guys play in the dungeons? Usually we don't go too deep into these.
I tend to avoid spoilers on Lamania from a content perspective. I like to mess with the system stuff, but I generally stay away from the content until it's on live.
Same thing.
Yeah, so I want to go over a couple kind of notes about it. We got a little information about what it's going to look like, right? So there's 3 groupings of quests. There's 13 quests total. There's a part 1 and a part 2 of Feywild. Each of those has 5 quests. It's pretty standard. I'm gonna guess that the 5th quest in these is a capstone. There's some sort of story arc that you kind of have to go through. They did say that they disabled. It says there's currently no flagging on any of the quests. I presume that means that there's going to be flagging in the future when it comes out. But I think they just turned off the flagging so people could just go check out the quests. A couple of the quests even have bugs highlighted in their list to say that there's something that's inaccessible, so you can't access it or it's not completable. But there's 2 chains with 5 quests each, and then there are 3 walk-up quests in the landscape. Don't know if that's going to be more of a cog-style walk-up where there's not even a quest giver or turn-in point, or if it's going to be kind of more traditional where there will be a quest giver, or something like Giant Hold where you walk up and get the quest, and then you go and turn it in for a reward, but there's not actually a quest giver. So we'll see kind of how that plays. The Feywild can be found by traveling to the hut from beyond in the Stormreach Harbor, so that's going to be kind of the access point, which does kind of explain why it's in the harbor, right? Because that's also where the Sharn access point is. That may have been part of why that we got that hut from the beyond there. Interestingly, it says from there you can enter the Feywild Wilderness Adventure area, and from there you can find the Wynwood Hall public area, which sounds like it's going to be kind of similar to the Keep of the Borderlands, where the first time you go in, you end up in the wilderness area, and then you're supposed to like go and find the Borderlands.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll see how that plays out, I guess. Kind of interesting. It's fun from like a story perspective. I'm not sure how convenient it is from a drooping up perspective, but whatever.
Well, there's a fast travel item in one of the packs, right?
The high one, yeah.
Okay, yeah. They'll probably jump you right there, much like the Bottle of Mist does. Okay.
So.
I would imagine, too, though, there's some way, because with Ravenloft, you can jump right to the tavern once you've been there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. When you go to the Mist portal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of goes. I'm kind of obviously I could have gone and looked, but I'm kind of expecting the walk up the landscape area to be not terribly large, but we'll see. Who knows? It could be Barovia sized, which is huge. I think Barovia is probably the biggest one, right?
I think so. I don't think I've even been through the whole thing ever.
Yeah. But we'll see how it goes. My kind of hope here is that there's quest doors as opposed to call up windows, just from a red boxing perspective. I like people being able to red box a little more than not. Just kind of a general rule, but level range, they are 5 and 32. So it's a really low level spot. But I think it fits really well into kind of where they've been adding content, right? And I like that it's not. If you think about Ravenloft has quests at 10, 11, 12, so it's kind of in that middle range. Sharn is kind of that 15, 16 range. So 5 sounds pretty good. And they release got Keep, Gatekeepers, Feywild. I'm gonna guess that whatever comes next is probably gonna be in that 7 to 8 range. So do that, and then you can do Ravenloft and so on and so forth. Seems like a pretty good fit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a range where there's a lack of XP right now because 3BC sits there and some things, but I think it's fine.
If you don't have Three Barrel Cove.
Yeah, if you don't, you should get it. By the way,
it's a great place.
In 6, there's a lack of XP at 6, so if you bank a level, you can keep doing this. That'll be nice. 5, there's tons of XP, but 6, not so much.
I think that's what might happen with me is the level 6 stuff that I usually do. I'll probably still do like House K just because of the K favor. But I could see myself really banking that level and going and doing Feywild, and doing and kind of that and Three Barrel Cove kind of being my 5-6 range. More.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of some of those older Jurassic quests anyways, which are kind of fun.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at the 6s, right? Like House J, Bounty Hunter, House P, Bloody Crypt. Bloody Crypt is
really good XP.
It's great XP, but it's also kind of long.
I don't do it.
Unless you have 4 people and you can really split it up.
Yeah.
Then it's fast. Otherwise, if it's just 1 or 2 people, it's not great XP per minute, really.
So I could really see myself leaning more into the Feywild in that range. Again, I'll probably still want to do like Part 1 of Delaras, which is in that range, and House K. And Three Barrel Cove is great, but yeah. I think this will be a welcome change in the XP landscape at that level, right? Even if it replaces some of Three Barrel Cove, I don't think that's a bad thing. I like Three Barrel Cove a lot, and it's got great XP, but I've been there a lot too, so
Yeah, I think we're 3 hardcore seasons in now, and I think there's definitely a repetitiveness to some areas, and I've noticed that it is nice where you have the newer content and you can splash that in with the older content when you're repeat running those.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the named loot next. And there's a fairly big preamble, and we'll kind of take it in bite-sized chunks, I think. And we'll start. So, Kokomajoba wrote these posts. So there's a nearly complete list of the loot within Feywild expansion. We'll probably call out some that maybe catch our eye, but we're not going to go full into what's there. Partly because there's a lot of items there, and partly because they change, and they are continuing to change, including the set bonuses, which there are a lot. So let's go through the loot. Kokomajobo lists out some loot facts. Oh, I'm sorry. Kokomajobo posted this. This is actually from Linabel, as I actually read the whole post here. So, loot fact 1. Items in Feywild will be using the same internal scaling that items in Sharn do. You will not experience a numerical jump up in power going from Sharn to Feywild loot, not directly at least. What this means is that items they give a bonus to, for example Strength, will give the same bonus to Strength in Feywild as they did in Sharn. Feywild raid loot will be the same power level as raid loot in Sharn and the update 47 raids, and Feywild artifacts will be of the same power level as other artifacts. This means it's entirely likely you will be using some Sharn loot as well as some Feywild loot, owing in part to loot fact number 2. We'll pause there. How do you guys feel about the power level not really increasing?
I think on the surface, I would, when you're paying for an expansion, you would want to see a little bit of a tick up there. That's been traditional, I think, with Ravenloft and with Sharn, and even going back to Motu and Shadowfell. But when I look at this at a more holistic level, I become okay with it because I feel like this expansion, slash update is really going to do a lot to solve some gear Tetris problems that I've been having on a lot of my builds. So I'm looking forward to it, even though it's not a step up.
It's going to create some gear Tetrising problems too. Let's just be clear.
Even though the numbers may not be going up, we're definitely going to become more powerful as a result of this gear, because we're going to have more. We're going to be able to fit in more stuff.
Yeah.
By means of set bonuses as well as the augment system, and so from what I see, I'm very impressed with the way they're sort of making it a lateral progression.
Yeah.
The augment system alone, I mean, I can't tell you how many augment slots just go unused on my current gear because there's really not a lot to put in them that's got a lot of value. But now I'm looking at that, and that's like recovering extra space by far.
So loot facts.
They're getting creative with gear, and it's very exciting. I think it's really awesome what they're doing.
I like the direction of kind of what we're going to get into here more than I've liked where they've been in the past. So, yeah, this is fun. Loot fact 2. Legendary items in Feywild, excluding weapons, will drop in one of 4 total set bonuses: spring, summer, fall, or winter. Loose kind of interpretation, just to kind of give you an idea of what they are. Spring and summer are DPS-y, but in kind of different ways. Well, spring is they're DPS-y in kind of different ways is a good way of putting it. Winter is kind of more tanky, and autumn is the caster one. In terms of set bonuses, we'll kind of get into more what that doesn't mean as these loot facts come through. But that kind of gives you an idea of what those sets are kind of looking at. The set bonuses are not like other at-cap set bonuses you may be used to. These sets will contain a total of 15 items, and you'll only need 7 of them to get the last set bonus. Don't freak out yet. What this means is that the set bonuses work like filigree sets do. They start out with a bonus for having 2 pieces of the set, and then an additional bonus for 3, 4, and so on until you reach the final bonus at 7. That being said, it's entirely likely that a player will only aim for 5 in a single set, or several 2-set versions of all 4 of the new Feywild sets. The set bonuses will not stack with the Sharn or Ravenloft set bonuses. They're all artifact bonuses. So you'll be using these to fill around gaps or shore up weaknesses in your character rather than a singular build around for the playstyle you're looking at. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, yeah.
First, I'll just jump us off here. Some things I like about this a lot, about this approach. One is that there's 15 items in each set, right? There's a lot of options here. When you look at Sharn, for example, there weren't options, right? The only option was essentially what armor are you wearing, which is really going to be informed more by your build type, less by what set you're getting, right? This one you're talking about 15 items, 15 items for a 7-piece gear set, which is much more like the 5-piece from Ravenloft, which is a lot more fun and interesting to build around, right? Because you had a lot of options in how to get there. The other part that I really like about this is the set bonus is incremental. So getting 2 items gets you a bonus. 3, 4, and 5. Like, you keep getting bonuses the more items you stick in there, as opposed to it being just all or nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest issue was always you can't get 2 sets in Ravenloft or in Sharn because they have overlapping slots. Like the armor, for example, was always the challenge. With this system, because they're giving you basically every slot available. I mean, I think they're leaving something out in some of them, like maybe a belt or something like that. But by and large, you'll be able to fit in these set bonuses around your Sharn gear or your Ravenloft gear, or you'll be able to fit in 2 of these different sets together and mix and match, which is really nice. It creates a lot of flexibility, and both within this expansion, but then also with the previous loot that we've been looking at.
You want to jump in, Voodoo?
I'm just really excited. I think they're doing a great job here, and I love the fact that it's incremental. I love the fact that there are going to be so many options, and I think that this is going to do a lot to. There are lots of the community that they're always saying they want lateral progression and avoid the whole invalidation argument, and I think they're, like I said, I always wanted them to be creative, and more so than in a loot set in a long time. I'm more excited for this than I have been, and it's great.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the backgroundy stuff on the epic sets that Linabelle has been kind of posting on, and again, this is all kind of still fluctuating a little bit. The general progression of these sets is the newer stuff is in the kind of 2 and 3 piece spot. The idea being that if you already have, say, a Sharn set or a Ravenloft set, there's new stuff here for just a couple of pieces. The 4th tier is stuff that you can find on Legendary Greensteel. The Winter set, for example, currently has a plus 20% to hit points bonus, which is the same bonus that you can get from Legendary Greensteel stacking stuff. You can get more out of Legendary Greensteel, more hit points boost. I think a 5-piece Legendary Shroud hit point set bonus is up to like I want to say it's 36%. So there's a bigger bonus there, but keep in mind, and this is something that Linabelle pointed out kind of towards the end of her posts up to the point of this recording, that takes a lot more grind of one raid. Also, those items don't have augment slots on them. And when we start talking about augments, you might realize why that might be a desirable thing, is to have more augment slots.
They also don't have a lot of individual value.
Right. that's also true. 5, 6, and 7 on the pieces is where you start to see some stuff that is newer or bigger or that kind of a thing. That's not always the case. Like one of the ones for the spring was the artifact bonus to melee and hit point, or melee and range power. Although I think that might have changed. I'm not exactly sure where they are currently because I'm not looking at that graphic because I wasn't smart enough to grab the updated graphic. But in any case, that's kind of where Linnabelle is kind of aiming with the set bonuses. So 2, 3 new stuff, 4 legendary green steel stuff doesn't stack. 5, 6, 7 is kind of the newer stuff per se.
I want to jump in here.
Mm-hmm.
As a player who probably runs with outdated gear, in that I'm still a fan of legendary green steel 5-piece sets. Both of my main tunes run under sets, 5-piece opposition, and I'm probably going to be switching over to this new loot. Even though, like you said, this has 20% stacking hit points, and the 5-piece opposition has 36. Like what Asheras said, that constituent pieces are going to be more powerful and have more options. So once you consider what you're going to get out of the constituent pieces of these sets, I think it's going to eclipse legendary green steel, even though at face value you're looking at, oh wait, this is only 20% hit points versus 36% hit points. When you consider the power of the constituent pieces, that I think you're going to bridge that gap and then some.
The thing that really stands out to me with this loot suite that they're proposing here and they're iterating on is, one, it threads this needle. It doesn't invalidate stuff we already have, right? Everyone is not just going to go out and redo their entire item suite for Feywild stuff. But at the same time, it's done in a way that is creatively able to add value to what you already have. Or let's say that you're someone who just started, back in August, said, oh, hey, all this content is free with this code that I can input, and you haven't farmed out. You're returning to the game. You don't have all of the Sharn gear or this legendary green steel stuff. At the same time that it can add value to players who have invested a lot into the older loot systems, at the same time, if you're new and coming in, this will bring you up to a really good place by just going into this gear, right? I think there's when we have these discussions, I think for us it's really easy to forget that there are people out there that don't have Ravenloft, that don't have Sharn content, right? Because that stuff wasn't free with the initiatives. That wasn't on sale like Shadowfell and Menace to the Underdark were. So this may be their first expansion that they're buying with this kind of a loot suite. So, and I think they have found a way that is interesting. It's creative. It gives us a lot of choices, even though it's still more of a lateral move. I'm really excited about this loot set. Not necessarily from the standpoint that, I'm going to go and like redo all of my gear sets on all of my characters, because I'm not. But I really like the underlying philosophies behind it. Versatility and incremental set bonuses. If nothing else, I love those two parts of it.
Yeah, another thing they did with this was in every single bonus at tier 5, you've got the +3 artifact bonus to all ability
that
scores.
Actually changed, I think.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was going to stay, because I know that was always one of my challenge with some of the recent set bonuses, where I would want to wear like a particular bonus for one of my casters, but the set didn't include my casting stat. And so I and you could fall into a trap with the spring set, for example, of doing that primarily on Dex and Int or something like that, and then on the summer set going off of strength, and so on. And then as a result, when you're trying to do a build that is using a non-traditional stat, because we have those options now with a lot of these universal trees and things, that set becomes less valuable, or that tier 5 becomes a tax to get to tier 6 because you're not going to be able to really make use of that.
Yeah, so again, this is probably going to change some more as they continue to iterate on this. But the latest picture of what it looks like is the fall set at the 5th tier has +4 to intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. The winter set at tier 6 has +4 to constitution, and that's it. There's no other stats. So the plus to all stats kind of pulled out, which, I mean, they also, all of them used to have at tier 4, they all got the 20% hit points. I personally kind of liked that tier 4 and 5 were the same across all the sets, and I really liked that it was plus to all stats and the 20% hit points, because I thought those were really useful for everybody. So I'm actually personally a little bummed that they pulled that out of all of them. That was kind of the one iteration that I didn't like.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, because my concern when I first saw these was that 4-piece winter set feels almost mandatory for a lot of my builds. I run a lot of R10s and a lot of, raids, at cap, and you just need the extra HP and all that content. And, that's going to be more important in a lot of cases than what else you can get in these DPS sets, for example, because you don't do any DPS when you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes it a bit more challenging, I think, to really dive in deep on some of those other sets if it's going to keep you out of the HP.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that they replaced the hit points with in tier 4, like Spring was a +3% dodge cap. Blah. So not as good as 20% hit points in my book.
Close.
And Summer was +5 tactics bonus. Again, 20% hit point. I'd much rather have the 20% hit points than the +5 tactics. So
are tactics a problem right now? Are people having trouble hitting that mark?
Well, I don't have a problem with the tactics bonus. It's just like I wouldn't trade it at all for the 20% to hit points.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, I'm not saying it's not worth anything at all, but the value proposition of that versus plus 20% hit points when tactics aren't a significant problem, whereas honestly, hit points are.
Yeah, and I, personally, I like that a lot of these bonuses are that they're sticking in legendary green steel alternatives in these, right? Like they don't stack with them; they're just alternatives to that. And yes, they may not be as high, but I just like that there's alternatives to that.
I agree.
So, if I have a negative about where this loot set is going, it's that 4 and 5 piece. I really liked that everyone gets 20% hit points, and I really liked that everyone gets plus to artifact ability to all scores. I thought that was great. I also can understand that it might be a little too powerful. I don't disagree with that.
Honestly,
if everyone can get 20% hit points and +3 to ability scores, I think you box yourself into the same corner that they have now with things like legendary green steel set bonuses and stuff like that. So,
well, I think that the benefit of this is that this also, we're talking about how this grows going backwards, but this grows going forwards too. If you introduce new sets in your next expansion or your next update, again, as long as you've got 4 of the 15 items, you're going to get that bonus. So you'll be able to mold it around not just what we have now, but also whatever's coming, which I think is pretty flexible. But going back to the HP thing, if I was going to make an argument for which of the 4 seasons, more than 3 seasons, which of the 4 seasons gets the 20%, I would probably put it in summer more than any other, because that one seems to me to be the one that leans more towards a melee DPS, which is the one that I think probably needs more HP help than a caster or a tank or
I don't agree. If you're going to have a tank set and you want to get tank, the tank set is the one that most clearly needs an alternative to. If you can't get the hit point % boost from legendary green steel, why would you build a tank that's using this set? It takes more pieces. You can't you lose. I mean, losing 16% hit points is significant, depending on what you're running. But losing 36% hit points to get, that's a non-starter.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Again, I think you should give it.
I
I like the idea of
would
it being for everybody, but I understand that it's problematic going forward. So
I think there are builds though that haven't been able to ever get the hit points from
yeah,
the legendary green steel, maybe more than a 2-piece set or so, or maybe like any of my melee DPSs, I can't squeeze in more than 2 LGS items. It's just not possible because there's so many other effects that a melee needs to have in order to be effective, because they need to have some defense because they're in the line of fire so heavily, and they need to have all their offensive stats. So but you're right, absolutely. If this is a replacement for the legendary green steel, then the tank would need it.
alternative.
Otherwise, yeah, or alternative, I should say. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if that 20% hit point boost was in all of them, I'd probably looking at readjusting my gear for a lot of my characters to incorporate a 4-piece set of something to get that boost. Because a lot of my characters are just kind of ancillary characters that I keep around and I touch every once in a while just to keep relevant. Like when Sharn came out, I redid a lot of their gear, to adjust to that. But that's something that I only do every once in a while when there's a big clear boost to stuff. 20% hit points to all of my characters, that would be a big boost. That would be something where I'd go, okay, I'm gonna go and re-gear my characters and get everyone a season set, and then they probably wouldn't get a new gear touch for a while. Now I'm probably just gonna wait until level cap increases, and then I'll do that and retool the gear and touch them all at that point. Let's see. There's a couple more loot facts to jump into here, and then we'll move on to augments. Loot fact 3: the artifacts in Feywild are in 2 Feywild set bonuses at once. Cool. I don't think there's anything to really dive into in that, but it's kind of fun and interesting, right? Makes it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, but it also gives you a little more flexibility and gives the artifacts a little bit more power. So that's exciting.
I'm not entirely sure. Well, I don't know. Like there's one that looks kind of one of the artifacts looks kind of castrated with intelligence on it, and it's in autumn and winter. I guess that makes the most sense. The obviously caster and the obviously the other two, spring and summer, probably wouldn't help anyways. So a little defensive, sure. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. There's some interesting ones there. There's only 4, and each have 2, so each one is represented twice. But and then loot fact number 4: the heroic items in the Feywild pack are all part of one all-seasonal set bonus. So there's a lot less complication when you're trying to get gear at level 5. Yeah, so that's kind of crazy because now you're talking about having 60 pieces, and you only need 7 to get the full set bonus, and there's only one set bonus set. So, I haven't seen that one being changed. But in case you're wondering, the second tier is plus 10 hit points. 3 is maximum spell points. 4 is plus 1 to all ability scores. 5 is 1% to dodge. 6 is 1 to spell DCs, and 7 is 5 PRR and MRR. And that hasn't really been getting iterated on. So, yeah, I think that's great. Less complication in heroics, fantastic, right? Because let's be honest, how long are you going to wear that stuff anyways? Maybe to Ravenloft, depending on what you already have. So,
I think that was pretty cool that they just had one heroic set bonus.
And I think the set stuff for it makes a lot of sense too, right? Like it seems well balanced for level 5, and it seems great for everybody. Like maybe the casters probably don't need 7 pieces because you don't need the PR. Well, PR and MR are still helpful, but maybe you're not going to use as much. The artifact bonus to spell DCs is the one that obviously everyone's not going to need. If I were going to like nitpick one little thing, I'd say maybe do plus 1 to spell DCs and tactical DCs so that everyone gets something out of it. But
I like that. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I should probably throw it in the thread. All right, so benefits and other implications of this approach. Linabelle said a lot of the feedback I've been noting over the years on the project is that the Sharn and Ravenloft sets are far too restrictive in their slot choices. We talked about that. Players tend to like raw power of the sets, but the limit in freedom from the fabulous gear set builders is just a tad too much. Hence the repeated feedback in that direction. This is swinging hard in the other direction. Hope is that this kind of slot freedom will allow for a lot more active choice when it comes to endgame play gear-wise. Mission accomplished, I think. A lot of other feedback is that the power jump from Ravenloft to Sharn disrupted a lot of players' gear farming routes and stepped on a lot of content. Trying something different here, an expansion pack without a level boost. If they can manage to build enticing gear without a level jump, I think they should. But that's what this kind of early feedback is for. I feel like everyone's kind of bought into that, right? Like there's been occasional posts of, hey, make better, not better than what I have. But I feel like that's oftentimes coming from a voice of, I want to become much more powerful every time there's a new update anyways, kind of feedback. So the approach means that if you're going for a full 7 set in a season, you'll need to find space for less than half the available items. It means that if 1 or 2 of the items don't really pique your interest, that's fine. There's more than enough to choose from. It turns into a huge benefit because that not all items will be used by all players. Linabelle was able to fine-tune niche items for niche playstyles far easier. So when you start looking through this stuff, and this was intentional, you'll see some stuff in like a caster item in like all of the sets. Like an item says, well, why would a tank need a caster item? Well, Voodoo likes playing tank casters, so great for him, right?
It's true.
So there's a lot. The sets themselves have a lot more interesting possibilities just in and of themselves, which I think is really awesome, right? So that's not to say that there aren't clear themes in the different groupings, though. I mean, that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I think if you're a caster, for example, then depending on what on a DPS side, depending on what element you're using, obviously you're going to want to be in fall just for some of the base castery stuff. But then you're also going to want to maybe be in summer if you're fire spec, for example, or if you're light spec, or you're going to want to be in spring if you're electric or sonic spec.
Maybe.
I mean, and it's also interesting how the stats line up because like charisma bonuses are in summer, but then wisdom and dex are in spring and so on. So it kind of makes it kind of interesting. So for example, if I was a wisdom based FPS or cleric, maybe I want the radiance, boosts out of summer, but then I want the wisdom boosts out of spring, and then I want some stuff out of fall. I mean, and then I want the constitution out of con out of winter. So you're all over the map on this one. When you look at it from a build by build standpoint, it becomes very interesting for some builds. I think some builds align more with just one a lot more easily than other ones do. So
hybrid builds will be a lot happier with this set bonuses than the Sharn sets, I think.
Yeah, sure. I was a little bit confused on some of the things I read, and correct me here. Is there a way to take pieces from one set and make them work for a different one?
Sort of in the Augments stuff, which we're about to get into.
Okay. See, that's why I'm not sure if I'm understanding. Okay.
Outside of Augments, no. So you can't I have not seen anything that says, okay, I'm going to change this item from a summer set to a spring set, for example. That's not on the table. All right, Augments. All right, this is the big one, and so we'll probably spend the next half an hour and then close out the show on Augments. Okay, so Augments. If you looked at Preview 1, this whole post is new to that because they just kind of showed some Augments. They didn't really show the systems behind it. This time we got to look at the systems. And, as we mentioned earlier, thankfully, items didn't blow up. There was no spontaneous combustion of items, which is great. Okay, overview. Expected with the release of Update 48 is a revamp to Augments. This in large part fundamentally changes the underlying structure of how Augments and Augment slots function. The post below describes how these changes will appear to players. The post below is one list of the various new Augments that are expected to be included in the release of Update 48. We'll kind of get into those a little more as well. Augments you already have. Any augment that is not slotted into an item when you log in after the update will be updated to both work with the new augment system and reflect the power level of Cannon's crafting effects at the minimum level of that augment immediately on first logging in, with no action required on your part. Cool. Dangerous, but cool. Any item that has an empty augment slot when you log in after the update will be updated to work with the new augment system immediately upon first logging in. Same thing. So, if the augment is not in something and the item doesn't have anything augmented into it, they should update automatically. Nothing you need to do. Augments that are slotted into an item already. They will work exactly as they did before the update unless you choose to intervene, and you would need a Legacy Augment Unslotter. Legacy Augment Unslotters are a new item that is sold at House Cannon's crafting halls. They allow you to remove the augment from the Legacy-style augment slots and, in the process, convert the Legacy-style augment slot and the augment to work in the new augment system. To do this, there's a process. You double-click the Augment Unslotter, drag the item you wish to unslot a Legacy Augment from, select which augment you would like to unslot it, then you have to log out and log back in to make that work. Because it has to be, the transfer, what makes it change is actually being the login part. That's where it changes. The reason why they needed a new item for this is because they changed how Jeweler's Toolkits work, so they needed something else to be in here. Advantage, you can buy this item for platinum, presumably, and you don't have to spend points to get them like you do with the Jeweler's Toolkits, so win.
They probably just need to add this at a general vendor, kind of like they did with the things for the...
I mean,
Oh,
yeah, I don't know why
Filigree Smashers.
they're being so like coy about where they're putting it, right? Like it has to be at a Cannon's crafting hall vendor. Not that those are hard to find, but I'm assuming they just don't want to clutter the general vendors with this. I guess that's my guess. Although I'm also there's no note of this, but I'm hoping that they will get an augment destroyer in the general vendors, like they have the sentient toolkit destroyer. That would be sweet. The new augment system. Slotting augments is no longer done by double-clicking on the augment and dragging them into the crafting UI. It's now going to be a panel to the right side of the inventory, currently named Modify Legendary Greensteel Items. It was really unclear to me if there's going to be a separate one for Legendary Greensteel, if they're just going to use the same system now. Not sure. So, anyways, that'll bring up a pop-up. You put the item in there, and each augment slot will be displayed. Empty slots can be filled by dragging the correct color of the augment into the slot. Filled slots can be emptied by dragging Jeweler's Toolkit over the slotted augment. Doesn't really say here if you can override one with the other, but I'm assuming you still can do that. All right, anything you guys want to jump in and say about that so far?
That sounds exactly like how the green steel works. So I would suspect they're probably just going to have the same UI for both. And I remember when green steel came out that there was talk that UI was what they preferred long term. So I think they just finally got around to doing it. Which I think that UI is better. Yeah, it's definitely more easier to work with, I think, than the current UI.
I'm going to skip the next bullet point and come back to it. New basic augments. There's a number of new basic augment types that cover stats previously not granted by augments. Some examples are tactics, stunning, vertigo, shatter. There's also in here accuracy, dodge, damage, and spell penetration. And they all look like they have a minimum level 1 version, and then 4, and then every 4 levels after that, so up to 28. New named augments. There are new named augments that can be gained from different sources. So there's a bunch of different sources we'll kind of get into in a minute. But there's new named augments. So bottom line here, a lot of new augments. If you thought that the loot, the 4 set, 15 piece each crazy loot flexibility from the actual loot was one thing, there is more, even more stuff to digest with the augments in terms of what you can do with augments now. So there's a lot of new options here, which is great. We've been asking this for a long time. No, I did not. Healing Amp is not one of the new augments that they've stated. Dang it. Updated basic augments. This is one I skipped. All normal augments that grant basic statistics now provide a bonus that is equal to a Cannith crafted effect of the same minimum level of the augment. I'm going to revise that and say most of them do, because it's not actually true that all of them do. So, dexterity, spell power, stats, right? Like, these are all things. So, the example they give is a minimum level 16 Diamond of Wisdom right now grants +5. It will now grant +8, which matches the level 16 Cannith crafted gear.
This is absolutely huge.
Yes.
Time.
I mean, augments were for so long just so outdated ever since we started increasing the level cap and the progression scale was off. And they fixed random loot, they fixed Cannith crafting loot, and they've been kind of going back through and trying to fix the name loot, as they can. But the augments have just been out of date for years and years. And to see this, just this change alone adds so much value to the augment system and creates so much flexibility. This is one of the things I'm most excited about, and I'm really excited about the named augments we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Go ahead.
Well, this whole augment revamp and the new loot that's coming out is going to do so much to reduce gear Tetris headache.
Although I will say at the same time, it's introducing a whole lot of gear Tetris that you can do. I agree.
It's making it easier.
It is. It's really making it easier, but it's giving you so many more options, though. So, and that alone creates a complexity to your planning, because before you could just rule out augments as an option for slotting stats, for example, because outside of the exceptional ones, they were never going to add value to your build. But now with this, you no longer have to necessarily worry about, especially for secondary or tertiary stats, maybe not your lead stat, but now you can say, okay, I don't need that piece of item because it has the insightful stat or the main stat that I'm looking for there. I can get that on an augment so easily, and it's going to be acceptable.
So, I don't need to find it. I don't need to be able to figure out where I can slot a dodge item anymore. I can just augment dodge.
Yeah. Although I will say it will probably be significantly less, because the dodge augment at 28 is 12%, and like the level 30, 29 stuff is named items is typically in the 19 to 20% range. Now, having said that, when you're talking about dodge too, that's not necessarily a problem because there's a dodge cap, but the accuracy,
and I don't need a bazillion dodge.
Exactly.
I can just throw an augment in.
Yeah, there's a lot of builds that aren't trying to max dodge, and as a result, right now, just don't even bother. If you're wearing medium armor or heavy armor, but now you can at least get that up to whatever your cap is.
Yeah, the new basic augments that they have in here, like the numbers, like the tactical ones are +14 to the DCs. Accuracy is 20, damage is 10, spell concentration is 5. Like, those numbers are all significantly lower than named item loot, but if you don't need it to be that high, that's still better than nothing, right? Like, you're not, instead of not having stunning at any stunning, you could have +14 to stunning, right? That's only like a -8 to what you could get out of items or the other items. That's a lot better than -22, right? So, I think that you really see a lot of bang for your buck here when you're talking about stats, and you're talking about stats that maybe aren't your primary stats, right? you're having trouble figuring out where you can fit in, hey, I want to get some more dexterity into my tank build, but I don't have anywhere to put a dexterity. Hey, now I can put an augment in that's going to be pretty darn good for you. So
Yeah, like I'm a DPS, but I'm
Time.
an Azamar, so I want some wisdom so that my healing
exactly,
hand is better.
yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome for that.
I think
Mhm.
even more critically, I think you probably will see more advantageous use of this in lower levels, like in heroics and stuff, where maybe it's a little, why would you even bother using, the level 4 Constitution augment? Because like, what's it gonna do for me at that? Like, it's a joke at that level right now. But now it'll be actually viable and useful. So, be a lot of interesting things in here.
Yeah, and name loot has less of a gap as well in
Mhm.
those heroic levels.
Yeah, so I think it might see a lot more value in those areas. A couple of exceptions to the scaling, which I mentioned. One is the DC augments. There are currently augments that give a stacking +1 and +2 to DCs of various schools. Initially, that was going to be changed, and they were going to be non-stacking bonuses that matched Kenneth crafting. Linnabelle went back on that and said now that he's just going to swap it back to the way they were and just make new spell DC augments somewhere else down the line. So you can use the ones you have right now; they won't change, which is good. I mean, the +2 is when you're talking about DCs, every +1 counts more than just about any other place.
You're talking about the ones that were typed
Giant hole.
exception.
Well,
Right.
I think they're actually typed enhancement.
Yeah.
Like the type in the description says that it shouldn't stack, but it does.
Okay, yeah.
That probably was a mistake from the beginning that they never fixed, and now they're lamenting never fixing it.
That's entirely possible. Although I feel like there was someone that said that like them stacking was intentional at the same time. I don't know. This was a long time ago. Also, they are not rescaling things that would be direct numerical downgrade. Elemental resistances, for example, are far lower and far uglier. Linnabelle said specifically didn't want to turn everyone's minimum level +5 augments to minimum level +4 resist augments. Hope you understand. No complaints here.
What about the very popular ML8 100% heavy fort augment?
Mhm.
I'm glad you asked. So yes, Linnabelle writes, swapping over to the new scaling would be direct nerf, but no, it's not changing. Linnabelle has long-term plans to swap fortification from a numerical equation to a static progression that would snap it to 5% increments and front-load it a ton and then have it taper off. So if that happens, the augment would ideally swap to using the new internal math, but keep the same front-facing numbers.
Can you restate that in English about how it's going to affect the level 8 heavy fortification
It's not
augment?
going to.
Okay. That's
The
all I wanted to hear.
the fortification, to my understanding, the fortification augments are not changing because it would be a numerical nerf. I believe what Linnabelle is saying is that he would like to, in the future, change the numerical scaling of fortification to one, be
Got
cleaner, so it's 5% increments instead of 4% increments, or so you'd have like fortification 20 instead of fortification 17%, right? Like one number is just cleaner.
You
and
said it was
makes
going to be
more sense.
front loaded,
But it would be front loaded,
which
right?
is what is
So
needed.
I would imagine that would mean that minimum level 8 would be heavy fortification. If not, I would expect and hope that fortification would then, instead of it just being light, medium, heavy, then you would get a whole new suite of augments that would kind of cover the gamut of 1, 4, 8, right, whatever those, and then there would just be a number value, which in theory could mean that you might lose a little bit at level 8. I hope not, but you might. But in my level 21 item that I have a heavy fortification augment slotted into, that might become more like, I don't know, 180% or something fortification. So there might be a give and take there, but I don't. Right now, it's not changing as far as
So
I
you're,
can tell.
so you're saying we should stock up on heavy fort augments just in case?
I don't know. They might change. I imagine we're gonna get a warning on that with the release notes, and if we don't get a warning that it's gonna change, there's gonna be a lot of people crying foul. Also, if you don't upgrade it, if you have something slotted into it already, if you just leave it in there and you don't legacy change it, like legacy unslot it, it won't change. It'll stay the same. So if you have something already slotted in and you leave it there, it shouldn't change ever. At least that's how I'm reading it.
So now, other named augments that already exist, things like the Master's Gift or the various Rubies of Inferno or the Deconstructor, those sorts of things. Those are not changing, correct?
I don't think so. I can't see any reason why they would change. They don't have any scaling versions in Kenneth Crafting to change to, so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that there hadn't been anything on that.
Yeah. It's only the only ones that are changing, to my understanding, is things that have a Kenneth Crafting equivalent, and only if that is not a nerf. Right, so that should be the ones that are changing. There are some new named augments, just kind of some basic ones. Some highlights in here. There are augments for heroism and greater heroism. There's a quick draw feat augment summoning feat, a whirlwind ward. There's a couple other things in here as well. But those are just named items. The other thing they're introducing are soul forged augments. The short version of this is you take some threads of fate, an empty soul vessel, which is something you can find in Feywild content. I'm going to hazard a guess and say we'll probably be able to find these in future content as well. And an item, a specific named item. And you put those together and you get a new augment. An example of this, the Epic Litany of the Dead. You take 50 threads of fate, a soul vessel. Those costs are the same for all these, by the way. And an Epic Litany of the Dead. You will get a bound to account level 30 augment that's colorless that gives you +2 profane to all abilities.
Delicious.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's gonna be really popular.
I haven't been able to wear the Epic Litany of the Dead for a long time.
Yep.
Because there's so many good ML 28, 29, 30 trinkets, but also sliding +2 profane has been a challenge sometimes.
This is I'm not gonna go through the other ones, but there's a bunch in here. I'll highlight another one that I kind of caught my eye. The ultimatum out of Defiler of the Just can get you a green augment that has petrification immunity. Great. I hate being petrified.
Oh yeah, it's not something I really want to gear for, but to throw it on an augment slot, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the idea that they're using the threads and that they're using
old raid armor or old raid things.
Items.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already been talking in Guild about our raid circuit and incorporating these older raids to start collecting these items, and anything they can do that brings old content and keeps it fresh and keeps it exciting is really cool. And for all of you hoarders out there who didn't throw away the Deathlook runestone because you didn't think you were ever going to wear it again, now you were right.
Yep. All of the rest of us who dumped all that stuff that we stopped using several updates ago into our sentient weapons, we're running stuff again. Just to kind of give people an idea, I believe that there is an item from every legendary raid other than the legendary shroud in here. I mean, mostly because legendary shroud doesn't really have items that you could pull into this kind of equation. So
I really hope that they expand upon this.
Linabel has said that that's the intention.
What I would love to see, and somebody suggested this on the forums years ago, is if we could make augments out of heroic green steel and have like a lit 2 augment or a concordant opposition augment. That would be dreamy.
That would be dreamy. To quote one of Linabel's favorite phrases, that might cause DDO to set itself on fire and jettison out to the sea. But I like the idea. That's interesting. I think that the workaround there would probably be you need to make, instead of it being an item from green steel, either heroic or legendary, I think you build it off of the shard, right? So you make the shard that would give it that, and then you combine that with the Soulforge augment, and that can create your augment.
Mm-hmm.
I shudder to think what interacting those two systems might do, but I think that's a workaround. In any case, the Soulforge augments sound great and really interesting. I'm really interested to see how that system gets expanded and uses other raid items over time. I think the cost in this is really reasonable. I like it a lot.
I think the only one I don't like is the Essence of Constellation, where it requires the
right.
Broken Blade, the Shattered Hilt, and the Cursed Blade.
Yeah,
That's
it requires
that's
3.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Out of all places, I need 3 separate raid items out of too hot to handle for that augment.
I like it. I want them to do more. I want them to create augments where we got to get 10 things from around the game, and it's going to be, challenging to acquire. But when we finally do, it's going to, we're going to get this super duper cool augment.
Would you want to get 3 items out of too hot to handle for improved destruction on your weapon?
I mean, I don't play melee, so I don't know how desirable that is. But if it was like some cool caster or tanky stat, then yeah, I mean,
right.
honestly, 3 out of 2 out to handle is okay. That's a little, it's a little much, but 3 from around the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Generally speaking, is cool.
So
3 from 3 different raids and with an effect that matches the need to get multiple items. I think this one they picked the toughest raid and they picked an effect that's just not really that exciting.
Okay, well, here's where it's going to get worse though. Set bonus augments. And this is probably what you would kind of touched on a little earlier, Voodoo. So there's colorless set bonus augments. Each of the following is a colorless augment. Slotting one of these augments into an item that already has a set bonus will cause that set bonus to be suppressed and replaced as long as the augment remains slotted. These can be slotted into items that don't have set bonuses as well. So these are all 3-piece augment slots.
So I don't understand the point of it suppressing existing set bonuses.
Each item can only have 1 set bonus at a time. That's the limitation. So
we have items right now with multiple set bonuses, but okay, that makes sense though.
This is what they're doing. So I know we have some that have multiple items, but for whatever reason, these ones suppress it. You can only have 1. A lot of these overlap with other things that are already here.
So to give you an example, if I had 5 items from the Summers set in the new content, and then I slotted Paragon Guard, which is the +10 artifact bonus to armor class, into one of those items, I would now only have a 4 set bonus, plus I would get the 10% armor class. Yeah. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are all essentially soul-forged augments, so they require 50 threads of fate, an empty soul vessel, and then a specific named item. And I believe they are all raid items. There's one in here that I'm pretty sure is a raid item, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
That appears to be the case to me too. Just glancing at the list, I didn't see any that weren't raid items.
I'm pretty sure the vestments of Ravenloft are the raid version of that armor. This is where it gets a little. I really like this concept. Because some of the set bonuses there's a +4 artifact bonus to each of the individual stats. There's one that's +20 to their MRR cap. There's a bunch of different artifact bonuses that you'll see on a lot of other sets. The one place that I don't like this concept is to get one of these sets, you need to find 3 of a specific raid item and convert it.
These augments give anything by themselves, or you just have 3 augments to get a set bonus?
It's just 3 augments to get a set bonus. They don't appear to give anything individually.
It's weird.
Well, no. So the way this works is that if you slot one of these items, then you get that effect. So
what effect?
The one that's listed there. So if you slot Perfect Silence, then you get the +3 artifact bonus to sneak attack dice, I think is what.
But you have to do it 3 times.
You have to have 3 of those augments slotted. This is the way I'm reading it.
That's how I read it as well. And I don't mind the concept. Like, I like the idea of, oh, this is a way to, if you've got items that are that aren't part of a set, or are part of a set that you don't care about, and you want to make them into a set that is useful to you using the augment that's on it, here's a way to do that. I'm on board with this. The only part that I'm not great on is you need the same raid item multiple times. And just to pick on Too Hot to Handle, if you want the +4 artifact bonus to charisma, you need to get an item from Too Hot to Handle 3 times. And if you want that item on top of that, you need to get it a 4th time. And that's the part that I really don't like, is you have to get the same item so many times.
Yeah, that is messed up. It's going to create a lot of greed. Like, can you imagine? Like, nothing's going to be up for roll because everybody's going to need everything.
I mean, I don't know if that's going to be for everything, but for sure the items that have been called out, and like, people are going to keep that and not trade it. Like, I mean, if I look, there's one that's +20 MRR cap. Hey, my monk would love that. It needs needs the Mantle of the Escher 3 times. Right now, if I pull that item, I'm keeping it. Like, for that purpose.
And the next 3 times you pull it, you're keeping it.
Exactly.
And that's not cool.
I guess I didn't read it that way originally. I read it as that it was giving you an effect that's from a 3-piece set bonus. Not that you needed 3 of them, but that if you slide the augment, you got whatever the effect was, that it was pulling out of one of the 3-piece sets from the other. Because these are all effects that come from Ravenloft or Sharn, 3-piece sets. So that's what I thought was happening. You're absolutely right. If you need 3 of these things and you have to slot all 3 of them, and every time you slot it, it invalidates the item, from its own set that you slot it into. That's going to make it a lot more difficult to get the current sets, and it's also going to make these augments a lot way more expensive than their value. Because if I have to have 3 items, then I can get the set itself, and most of the sets have more than one effect in them. I don't know. I don't think that makes sense to me.
I think the way that I read it is you need to slot 3 of these into 3 different items, and that I like that concept in the sense that there's a lot of items that don't have a set bonus, and there's a lot of items that have a set bonus that maybe I don't need that. Like, I'm not using that set at all, so I can convert them to a set that I do want. Now, if I can slot one of these items in, one of these augments into something, and then just get that set bonus just from one augment, great. The cost might actually be a little too low.
That's what I was understanding. Well, because if you're taking, I take Legendary Dreadkeeper, for example, for 3 pieces on that set, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different effects.
Yeah.
If you're pulling one of those out, that's at the +4 artifact bonus to intelligence, for example, and you're going to give that to someone, that's fine. For that to just require 1 raid item plus the threads, because getting raid items is not that easy, and the threads cost as well. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe the thread cost could be a little higher, if anything, but I don't know. To need 3 of the raid item, that's a tall ask. Or to need, or and even more than just needing 3 of the raid item, to need to use up 3 slots for just this one bonus. I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's very valuable to me. Not for the value, the power you're getting from these.
Either way, I would say though that even if it's just one augment will give you that set bonus, which because they say 3-piece set bonus is this, like, I kind of lead that's not the case. But even if it was, like, it's still gonna be a long time till I give up a Mantle of Escher. Like, I'm gonna make a bunch of these +20 MRR cap augments. Like, I'm still not gonna be giving up those raid items. So
they need to clarify the wording on this clearly. Like, it just that even the 3 of us can't agree on what this means, or definitively.
Other than the fact that people are going to be hoarding these specific raid items, and they're going to be hard to get put up for roll. So, But hey, more raiding. I like that, and I like the legacy part of it. Like, The only part about this system that I'm really kind of on is go get this one specific raid item 3 times to get this bonus. It makes those items so much more valuable. You wonder if they're ever going to be put up for roll. Now, having said that, a lot of those items aren't going up for roll. Like, no one wants them anyways, but
I know a number of the developers listen to this podcast, so hopefully we'll get a clarification on this. That'd be nice.
Yep. That's all I got. Anyone else want to throw something out there before we wrap up the show here?
Just want to say I'm really excited about this. The whole expansion, especially the augment system and the way they're doing the loot. Outside of what we just talked about, I'm not so jazzed on that. But everything before this, just A+. I'm excited to see it and excited to get into it. And I'm glad it's coming really quickly. As much as I've been enjoying the 3 new raids and would actually be fine with having another couple months to grind those, I'm anxious to see all of this. And I'm super anxious that there not be a level cap. If that's going to wait until May or June, that's great. Take all the time you need. Take until 2022 May or June if you need to. It's fine.
I feel like I got enough stuff to do for a little while, right?
Absolutely.
Voodoo?
This kid's got a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
There's a couple points that I lost a little enthusiasm. I'm not so sure on, but even like the set bonus augments, like I don't like the idea of everyone trying to find this 4 copies of this one specific item. But I also really kind of like the concept. So
the concept is, maybe if they can just tweak the implementation a little bit, the concept on this is great. And the concept on the other items too. I really, more than these, I really like the idea of taking a raid item that had a really unique special effect on it and then being able to pull that out into an augment. Yeah. That the previous list, the Soulforged augments were really what got me interested.
Yeah. I like the potential of the system. I had even thrown out in the thread the idea of, hey, instead of getting 3 of the item, maybe you get 1 of the item and some raid runes instead of 3 copies of the same item. And then I realized after the fact that doesn't really work because you'd have to craft all 3 augments at the same time doing it that way. As opposed, like, you can't do it one at a time. So,
well, and 50 threads of fate is really low, honestly. I mean, you can get that in one run of any raid.
I meant instead of the item.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the cost isn't the problem for me. It's the sameness of the item that you need 3 times that's the problem for me. A raid item plus 50 threads plus a soul fort, like fine, like that makes sense. If I need to do that 3 times to get the bonus and it's the same item every time, or the one that we mentioned in the you need 3 items to make 1 augment, that's where it starts to get a little iffy for me. But I like the system, and I'll live with it. I still think the positives are outweighing the negatives here. That's just kind of my negative feedback or criticism. All right, let's close out the show. Voodoo, why don't you plug your stuff, man?
Hey, you can find me on YouTube, channel Vooduspyce, with nearly 1,000 DDO videos, quest walkthroughs, raid guides, crafting tutorials, and much more. And you can also find me live streaming on Twitch channel Vooduspyce nearly every day.
Hey, Slacker, get that 1,000th video up there, man.
Seriously, what have you been doing?
Getting there.
Ash, anything you want to plug?
No, not at all. I'm good. But I would say that I have watched a number of Voodoo's videos, and they've been extremely helpful. So he does great work. Thank you very much,
man.
I'll give a shout out, especially to the rating videos. You may be looking to do more rating in your future, including raids that maybe you haven't done before or very little, or it's been 5 years since you've run it. There's some stuff there that you may find interesting.
Teaching raid videos for every raid in the game on my channel.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks, guys, for joining me today. And thanks to all the other contributors to DDOCast and to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast and to Cybers for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email me at ddocast@gmail.com and we'll get you on our website. Check out ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. You can catch us live at twitch.tv/DDOcast for both the show and playing DDO. Might be doing that a little bit more. Might be doing some more stuff outside of DDO on there a little more. I don't know. Still kind of figuring that out. But there might be more stuff on twitch.tv/DDOcast in any case. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment in this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, or a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates at DDOcast on Twitter is the best place. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.